I'm going to stay at the podium this morning. That I really want you guys to hear what I have to say. Let's forget all the antics, okay? Remember during jury selection, I said we was going to have a real conversation, right? Real conversation. And the state and I felt like you guys were the most suitable jurors after Adreian, okay? There's three sides to every story. I know you probably heard that before. One person's version of what happened, another person's version or perspective of what may have transpired, and then there's the truth, right? The truth, ladies and gentlemen, is you at this point. You determine what the truth, what the facts are in this case. You have the ability to give us justice here today, okay? My opening statement, I explained to you all what you would hear in this case. And I submit to you that the defense kept its promise, okay? We kept our promise in this case. This is a case about self-defense. This is a case about reasonable doubt. Now, the state has rested, the defense has rested, and we both are asking you to use your God-given common sense. Consider all the reasonable inferences that comes from the facts that you heard and saw today and throughout the scope of this trial. Consider what you heard, what you didn't hear, what you saw, what you didn't see. Use your common sense, okay? This case is not for the weak at heart. We selected you guys hoping that you wouldn't just have sympathy one way or the other, you know, just unbiased, impartial citizens. This is your highest civic duty to sit on a jury. This is literally the highest mode of citizenship you can have. Sitting right now, being in judgment, to decide whether someone should be found guilty for a crime that they've been accused of, and falsely accused of at that. Okay? I thought about this last night when I was summing up the evidence in this case, and a huge question just jumped out in my mind. And I already had been thinking about it throughout the scope of representing Mr. Dority, but after the trial, when the state actually presented and showed their hand, you know what that question was? Where's the proof? Where's the proof? The state has a burden, a high burden, that they have to overcome. And I submit to you, the state has not met their burden. They did not. It's not your job to stack inference upon inference upon inference to come to a conclusion that Mr. Dority did not act in self-defense. If you have a question in your mind right now, an unanswered question, if you have an unanswered question in your mind about the facts of this case, if something's not sitting right with you, if something's troubling you, if it's something that you would have wanted to see or needed to see to come to a conclusion and you can't make sense of why you didn't get that, why you didn't hear that, that's reasonable doubt.
Objection, misstatement of the law.
Sustained. I've given you what the instruction is on reasonable doubt. You have it in writing. You should consider that, not what the lawyers argue. Understood?
I'll go directly to the jury instruction. The court has already given to you. And again, you guys use your common sense, okay? And I'll say this a little differently. Mr. Dority is not required to present any evidence or prove anything at all, number one, right? That's not his job. He could have sat at that table, played tic-tac-toe. He could have been texting if the court would allow. Of course, decorum doesn't allow that, but you get what I'm saying. He didn't have to do anything, okay? Proof beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean proof beyond all doubt. Of course not, right? Reasonable doubt is not merely a possible doubt, a speculative, imaginary, or forced doubt. Such a doubt must not influence you to return a verdict of not guilty if you have an abiding conviction of guilt. If you have an abiding conviction of guilt. On the other hand, this is what I want you to really pay attention to. If after carefully considering, comparing, and weighing all the evidence, there is not an abiding conviction of guilt, or if you having a conviction is one that's not stable, one that wavers, vacillates, then the charge is not proved beyond a reasonable doubt. And guess what? You must find him not guilty. Not may, you must do it. So, nobody in this courtroom other than Mr. Dority, I don't know if Ms. Walker's in here, at some point, no one, neither of you, the court, myself, the state, was at 2529 Egret Shores Drive on May 9th, 2022. Right? Everything we say is like our best efforts to try to advise you of what happened that morning around 1:30 a.m. It's a very serious case, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a sad fact that, unfortunately, it's a large sum of people who are murdered every year. And we ask you not to just base this case off that type of sympathy that someone lost his life. We acknowledge this is a very sensitive, sad situation. Both families have been impacted. So out of respect for both families, this is a tragedy. But Mr. Dority didn't go looking for trouble. When tragedy happens, right, it becomes the duty of law enforcement to be competent, careful, timely, diligent in the performance of those duties, especially when investigating homicides and violent felonies, and doing it without a bias, without a rush to judgment. So let's talk a bit about what the evidence did show, right? The evidence revealed that neither Mr. Lawrence Dority or Lawrence Dority's fiancée, Tatiana Mesa, invited Mr. Payne over. You didn't hear from Tatiana. You didn't hear that from her mouth, that she invited Tara over. Where's the text message? You remember that? Tara Walker wants you to believe she was texted by Miss Tatiana Mesa to come over. Did you see a text message? Where's the proof? The evidence showed that even Miss Tara Walker advised her boyfriend, Mr. Payne, not to go over to Mr. Dority's house. She admitted to that fact. But why? Why was he there? Why was she there? The crime scene was contaminated. And I'm going to expound upon that a little bit later. That's very important. It's so very important to this case. Fatal to the state's case. It's fatal to the state's case. There was evidence that was not properly secured and processed. Tara Walker's testimony is not credible. There's inconsistency in the state's case. There's lack of evidence in the state's case. And when you go through the jury instructions, that is a factor that tends to go towards reasonable doubt. When there's inconsistency in the evidence, lack of evidence, inability of witnesses to recall what happened, you know. Mr. Dority's actions were justified under the circumstances of this case, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Dority was standing his ground. Let's talk a little bit more about what you heard over the course of the trial, though. Now, in the opening, the state conceded that Mr. Dority and Mr. Payne had brief words, right? So all this badgering Mr. Dority on the stand about him allegedly telling a detective that he made no comment, that he just walked out the house and shot this man. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it on the video that it was verbal. Not only that, Tara Walker, even though she didn't want to really say what happened, she said she pulls into the neighborhood, pulls up to the house, and sees her boyfriend standing outside the car, sees Lawrence Dority talking to him, and based on her words, they were communication was happening. Such a soft word, right? They was just communicating at 1:30 in the morning. Just communicating. That's not what happened. The state tried to create some sense of a factual inconsistency, knowing the fact of the matter is that the evidence revealed there was, in fact, a verbal altercation outside of Mr. Lawrence Dority's home at 1:30 in the morning, and Mr. Payne's vehicle is outside of Mr. Dority's house. Feel free to ask for a read back of the opening statement if you don't recall that.
Objection. The opening statement is not evidence.
Sustained.
The state made no mention of Mr. Payne's girlfriend being present during the initial altercation either, because she wasn't. Mr. Payne arrived before her. They didn't meet together. You remember? She was saying that at some point, she decided to text him and say, hey, I'm headed over to Tatiana's house. I don't know, something's going on, something. And he took it upon himself, oh, I'm gonna go over there too, I'll meet you there. No, don't go. No, I'm already on my way, I'm on the 408, I'm on my way. Don't even know where he stay at. Driving around the neighborhood, cabins in the neighborhood, looking for my client's car. 1:30 in the morning. So at some point during the verbal altercation, Tara Walker arrives. Mr. Payne actually walks up to her car. And at some point, she tells him to get back in the car and move his car up some more, closer to the house. But do you remember what Tara said? That when she first arrived, that the first person she talked to was Larry Dority, Mr. Lawrence Dority's father. And what did Mr. Larry Dority say to her? Tara, get back. I'm about to go get my gun. Now, if it wasn't a threat that appeared imminent or of some sense of seriousness, that's consistent. Use your reasonable inferences. You're allowed to use reasonable inferences. So that's one fact that's admitted by the state's own witness. The state has proven the defense's case. When Tara Walker pulled up, Larry Dority told her to get back. I'm about to get my gun. She said, no, don't do that. That's my son's father. That's my boyfriend. Oh, I've never seen him before. That's a big fella. How big is he? Wait a minute, let me see. Medical expert, Dr. Hansen, said he was 80 inches. Mr. Dority, could you stand up for a second? With your permission, Your Honor, may I ask my client to stand up here?
That's fine.
See what Mr. Payne was doing, he was coming to try to pick a fight. He was trying to be intimidating. He wasn't coming to sing a Christmas carol outside his house at 1:30 in the morning. He wasn't delivering for Uber. He wasn't delivering for Amazon. He had no right to come to his house. Now, if you believe he has a right to be in the street, just parked outside, just waiting, lying in wait for someone with your car running, headlights on, just sitting in the car, and then when someone walks up thinking that you're someone you know, you hop out with a threatening gesture. Mr. Dority goes in the house. A reasonable person, you know what a reasonable person would do after having an argument outside of someone's home that you don't have a right to be at 1:30 in the morning? And when that person gets ready to go in the house, after you threaten the person and he goes in the house, by the time he comes back out, you should be gone. But guess what? He moved up a little bit closer. And guess what? Mr. Dority's son was still outside, who was 9 years old at the time, 8 or 9, give or take. His dad was 62 years old. There's inconsistency in the evidence, ladies and gentlemen. There's lack of evidence in this case. So, let's talk about Deputy Garrett Morris. He was very forthcoming and candid, professional. He arrived at the scene. You could see it in his body camera. He rushed over, and basically he was administering life-saving measures to try to revive or try to just get some sense of keeping Mr. Payne viable till paramedics can arrive. You know, he arrived, he located Mr. Payne in the driver's seat at that time, one left foot out of the vehicle, right foot in the vehicle, you know, but he wasn't all in the car the whole time now. Only after this shot hit him and set him down, he went and got in the car. Because you remember, I was talking about Dr. Hansen. I don't want to jump around too much, but I'm going in the order of where the state called their witnesses. So just walk with me through this journey of justice real quick. Just walk with me for a second. Detective Garrett arrived, pulled Mr. Payne out of the car, and started trying to administer CPR. Okay. He did a brief search of Mr. Payne's fanny pack. He did not see any weapons in there, but he did not search the vehicle at all. Okay? That's pretty much all he did. After this, fire and rescue arrived, and then Deputy Garrett says he maintained the crime scene. Just himself, just Deputy Garrett, maintained the crime scene. He testified that he put up crime scene tape, and he held the area around the car until homicide and forensics units arrived. Now, he was equipped with body camera footage, remember? Did you see if he maintained the area on that body camera footage that you saw? Where's the proof? Body camera's on. You on duty. You're working. See, the state is trying to cherry pick with you. They're picking to try to show you some things, to try to spoon feed you. You ever had Thanksgiving dinner that was so nasty that you had to sprinkle a little sugar on it to make it taste good? That's what this tastes like. That's what this is. You know, don't let them force feed you. If it's nasty, it's nasty. All right, let's proceed. The state published the body-worn camera footage, and the footage did not reveal that he maintained his area around the car. In fact, there is no evidence that the area around the car was even secured or maintained free of contamination or free of manipulation. Also, Deputy Garrett candidly admitted that when he arrived on the scene, the passenger side door of that black Chevy sedan, that Malibu, was already open. Now, he initially testified that he believed Tara Walker was on the passenger side, but then he couldn't really say that because the door is already open by the time he arrived. All right? And again, he did not search the interior of the vehicle. And I ask you again, where's the proof, right? Somebody gained access to the passenger compartment of the vehicle. That door was completely open. Tara did say at some point in her testimony that she went on the driver's side. I'll get to her testimony in a second. I'm just going to keep going down chronologically. But you know what else jumped out? And I hope you guys asked to watch that video again. If you listen closely to Deputy Garrett's body camera footage, Tara Walker is heard in the background saying, "Why am I here? Why am I here?" You said you was here because you was invited. Seemed more like a setup or something. What's going on? You know, Tara has a motive to not be honest in this situation, because you know what this is? When Mr. Dority arrived home and he approaches the vehicle that he was familiar with at one point, believing it to be Tara Walker, but unknown to him, a 6'8", 247-pound man steps out and in a threatening manner steps over to him and say, "I'll smoke you. What you want to do?" That's an aggravated assault with a weapon. That's a felony, a forcible felony. And if Tara Walker invited him over to do that, that means she conspired with Adreian Payne to commit a forcible felony of aggravated assault. Use reasonable inferences, ladies and gentlemen. So let's talk about Hannah Minor, the crime scene investigator. She, at the time of this incident, May 9th, 2022, she had only been employed, as a crime scene investigator for 4 months. She had just started January 2022. So she's 4 months in on the job, relatively inexperienced. And it technically shows, because the role of a crime scene investigator is to respond to the crime scenes, document the crime scenes with photos, notes, sometimes measurements, document evidence, collect evidence, process that evidence, package that evidence, forward that evidence to its final location, whether it's in a laboratory or evidence unit, and write reports of their involvement in those cases. And of course, they work in conjunction with law enforcement and detectives. This is her exact testimony, right? It's from my notes, right? But she failed to document and process, collect that knife. She didn't dust for prints. She testified that it can be done, and case by case it can be done. She didn't try to get any touch DNA. She testified that she can do that. It's case by case. So in a case like this, a homicide, an allegation, if someone died, that's not something where you think that's important to dust. She agreed that it can be a weapon. It is a weapon. But Tara is saying she's just been driving around with a kitchen knife for 4 months. A mother is not driving around with a kitchen knife on the front passenger side floorboard in plain view for 4 months. That's not believable. Well, one would hope or think. So May 9th, she was on call, crime scene investigator. Their office is short-staffed. They're only staffed to midnight, so any calls that come in after midnight goes to the on-call crime scene investigator, where they take the call from home. Miss Minor, investigator Minor, she didn't get notified till 4 a.m. This incident, Mr. Dority arrived at 1:30 in the morning, right? Do you remember the testimony of Tara Walker when she said her brother arrived at 2 a.m.? Follow this for a second. 1:30 in the morning, he gets home. 2 in the morning, Tara Walker's brother arrives. 3 in the morning, Tara Walker's father arrives. 4 in the morning, crime scene investigator is notified, and 5 in the morning, she arrives. 7 in the morning, Tara leaves with her car still at the scene. Crime scene investigator never took a picture of her car, never searched her car, didn't even know her car existed, although Tara was alleged to have been at the scene at the time of this incident. Nobody even took identification from her brother. What is her brother's name? Nobody knows. What kind of car he drive? Tara said a BMW. Crime scene contamination. You heard testimony from Mr. Dority that he seen her go in the car and run, and she didn't come back out until she was talking to law enforcement, till law enforcement arrived. But what time did law enforcement arrive? The only person you heard from was Deputy Garrett. Where was the other officers, if any? And what time did they get there? How could you secure a crime scene? Where's the proof? It's akin to someone throwing rocks at a glass window, and when you come outside to confront them, they're hiding their hands. Where's the proof? This is serious. This is someone's life. The state wants you to believe that my client just comes out the house, guns blazing, just shooting at someone for no reason, in cold blood, without adequate provocation, without being in fear, just willy-nilly. Use your common sense. That's not what happened. And it's not the defense's job to show you things that is not even, it didn't happen. The video that the state showed you doesn't even show the actual, it doesn't show any body, any person in any frame. All you hear, it's a video of audio. It's a video of audio. They didn't, well, how about this, if this don't convince you? When Mr. Dority testified and the defense rests, the state didn't even put on a rebuttal witness, no rebuttal evidence. They haven't rebutted self-defense. Their own case established self-defense, arguably. And after hearing from Mr. Dority, who refuted that? Tara wasn't there when he first encountered Mr. Payne. Now, I imagine what may be troubling you guys is that there was actually no gun found in the car. But it's a reasonable explanation for that. You know why there was no gun found? Because the gun that he had was removed. Either by Tara, her brother, or somebody.
Objection, facts not in evidence.
That's a reasonable inference.
Overruled.
You're allowed to make reasonable inferences based on the facts. That's her job, to collect and document the knife. It was still in the car, not taken in evidence at all. You didn't even have a chance to see it today. I couldn't present it to you. It was not taken into evidence. That's not fair. The state can strike hard blows, but they can commit fouls now. Mr. Payne's girlfriend, her car was on the scene. It was never searched, no picture taken or anything. Investigator Minor agreed that she did not document the vehicle. She wouldn't know what was inside the vehicle because she didn't document the vehicle. And she agreed that part of her duties were to collect evidence, and she failed to document or collect evidence. This means this was an incomplete investigation, insufficient investigation. Marco Quintana, the neighbor, had that Google Nest camera. He didn't see what happened. The actual altercation didn't occur in video, but you just had the audio. He basically just provided them with audio. Not much value to the case at all, other than just at least allowing you to see that an actual argument did happen. You can hear that something happened outside, and then you hear the gunshot. Mind you, Mr. Dority only fired one shot. It's not like he unloaded a clip. He shot to repel the threat. He didn't shoot to kill. He didn't ask for what happened. Even in the state's opening, he says that Tara Walker speaks with her boyfriend, and he decides to come over to the residence as backup. Backup? Backup for what? I hope that you guys, you have to base this case on the facts that you heard in court, not anything external. This is the case. The facts are the facts. And they didn't meet their burden. They didn't. Tara Walker says that Tatiana Mesa texted her and said, "Meet me at the house in 15 minutes. Did she meet you? Where was it? There was no meeting. It's not right, ladies and gentlemen. You are empowered with the ability to give us justice here today. Justice demands not guilty. His actions were justified. When you go through this jury instruction and look at the justifiable use of deadly force instruction, all those elements are met. It's like, think about this. The elements, you think about elements of any type of crime or any type of rule of law. Think about a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? You got peanut butter, jelly, and bread. If you're only presented with bread and peanut butter with no jelly, then guess what? It's not a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's missing a necessary element. This is a very simple case. Very simple. Getting back to some of the comments, Mr. Payne, instead of leaving, pulls his car up closer to the home and gets back out of the car. Mr. Dority again questions, "Why are you here? You need to leave." You can't really hear much of the conversation. Like, it's muffled. It did happen relatively quickly. It happened relatively quickly, you know. And you can see in that video that my client's son was very, very close in the vicinity to this situation. And it was not until Mr. Payne reached in a threatening manner as if he can pull. It just goes back to Dr. Hansen, right? Let's talk about her for a second. She has 35 years of experience. 35 years since 1990. She did maybe 250 to 300 autopsies a year for 35 years. And she testified that the trajectory of the bullet wound that Mr. Payne was inflicted with pierced the tissue of his bicep. Mr. Femur twisted, it just pierced it, and then it went into his chest cavity. But it's consistent with this movement. Thumb down, arms raised. How is this not consistent with someone trying to aim a firearm at you if you're left-handed? The testimony is he was left-handed. You can absolutely aim a gun. I apologize if I'm aiming at you like this, but I really need you to see this. A gun can be aimed like this. This is consistent. And just because the gun wasn't located, but you have a reasonable explanation for that. I can see if you didn't have that. I can see if the crime scene was not contaminated. I can see when law enforcement arrived, the passenger side door wasn't open, wide open. I could understand it if Miss Tara Walker's brother did not arrive at 2 a.m. before law enforcement did. Or at around the time of, had to be before, because he wasn't documented. Was he invited over? Who invited him? Sounds like an ambush. Seems like an ambush. That's a reasonable inference that can be made. Nonetheless, Mr. Dority reasonably believed that Mr. Payne had a firearm on his person, and there is a strong inference that there was. Either Tara's brother left with the gun, or Tara left with the gun, or the gun was left in her car, or her father took the gun. The crime scene was contaminated before law enforcement arrived there. Tara's testimony should be taken with a grain of salt at best. She didn't even want to acknowledge the fact that Mr. Payne arrived on scene before she did. Vacillating between that. Evasive. You remember when I asked her on cross-examination? Before Mr. Lawrence Dority walked away and went into his home, he actually asked Mr. Payne, "Why are you here?" Right? Tara Walker says, I can't recall if he said that. Can't recall. How convenient for you not to be able to recall that fact, but you can remember everything else, like the selective amnesia, when a fact is not a fact in your favor. Come on. Reasonable doubt. Come on. How's this justice? How's this fair? Where's the integrity of this prosecution? Remember, the state had the burden to overcome. Remember that. There is so much wrong with this. The integrity of this prosecution cannot be established beyond a reasonable doubt. The state tried to impeach Mr. Dority about what he said to police, but they failed to show you the interrogation video.
Objection. Halliburton equally available for defense.
Sustained.
The burden is not on us. Did you hear that? The state wants us to provide you with evidence when it's their job to do that. You got to hold that against them. Throwing rocks at a glass window, hide your hands.
Judge, can we approach?
Yep.
Remember, it's their burden, ladies and gentlemen. Literally, this is a homicide investigation. What kind of investigation was this? This case is literally about who do you believe at this point. It's literally Lawrence Dority versus Tara Walker. No other witness brought any value to this case, ladies and gentlemen. Crime scene investigator didn't collect evidence. She admitted that to you. Maybe due to relatively inexperienced tenure of being a crime scene investigator, but it's not to talk bad about her. She's very educated, obviously. But the state has utterly failed to prove that Mr. Dority did not act in self-defense. This appears to be some sort of rush to judgment here. You know, some sense, that's what this was. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dority has exercised his constitutional right to a jury trial. And we truly believe you will make the right decision here today. Justice requires a finding of not guilty. He acted in self-defense of himself, his son, his father, given the darkness of the night, 1:30 in the morning, the size difference. He cooperated with law enforcement. Why was Mr. Payne there? Why was Tara Walker even there? This was a setup. Why didn't they leave? Mr. Dority was not intoxicated. There's no evidence of this. Mr. Dority's father drove him home because Mr. Dority's vehicle was in his own driveway. How else would he get home? Walk with his minor son at 1:30 in the morning? We're not challenging whether the firearm was functional or not, so FDLE testimony from Ms. Kristen Killinger, not an issue. Mr. Dority testified at 1:30 in the morning. He, his father, and his son was on the way home. As they arrived home, Lawrence sees a car parked at the corner of his home, and he automatically assumed it was Tara. So he thought it was weird that she was parked right there, because she would typically park in the driveway or in front of the house. So Lawrence walks over and to greet her, to say, hey, or inquire, why are you parked here? Mr. Payne gets out the car, and when he gets out, he's looking down at Lawrence. He has his hand in his waistband. Lawrence could see something silver sticking out on the side of his hip with his hand on it. And Lawrence asks him, what are you doing here? Mr. Payne replies, this is the words from my notes. He actually said, I'm not playing with you, I'll smoke you. That's what he said. I'm not playing with you, I'll smoke you. Lawrence replied by saying, what? Threw his hands up in the air, started freaking out. Lawrence's dad rolls down the window and asks, is everything okay? Lawrence replied, I don't know. He goes into the home, retrieves his firearm so he could safely get his son in the house. So he returns outside and sees Mr. Payne has moved his car up even closer, and he's gotten back out of the car again. At this point, what do? It's dark. You have no duty to retreat, first of all. If it's troubling you that he didn't remain in the house and go hide in the closet and get on the cell phone and call the police, he's not required to do that. He's protecting his castle. He's protecting his son. He's worried about his father. Why are you here? Can you please leave? Mr. Dority is 5'8", 145 pounds, had no relationship or affiliation with Payne. Lawrence did not invite Payne over. Out of all the 15 years he known Tara, he had only met that man maybe twice. One time at some girlfriend's mother Thanksgiving or something like that, he showed up unannounced. And he couldn't even recall the other time he met him. Lawrence went back in his house because he felt like his life was threatened. The jury instructions, the law in the state of Florida supports self-defense in this case. This is one for the books. You have the ability to send a message.
Objection, improper asking of the jury to send a message.
Sustained.
Ladies and gentlemen, we trust you will render justice and make the best decision, one that is fair, one that justice requires. Lawrence was just trying to go home Lawrence didn't know what Mr. Payne's mental state or his motives. He know what was going on.
Counsel, your 45 minutes that you imposed on yourself is up. You need to wrap it up. You started at 9:55, it's 10:40.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, we trusted you would do your job today and find Mr. Dority not guilty, because that's what justice requires. There was no rebuttable evidence. Not guilty. Thank you.